All right. What do you say, Swan? What do you say we jump into party mode?
Yeah.
Party Shakespeare party mode.
Shakespeare party mode activated.
Yeah. Okay, so this today we're doing a scene from Twelfth Night because I was like, it's Christmas. Twelfth Night isn't set at Christmas, but it has like the Christmas spirit, I guess.
Okay.
12 days of Christmas and on the 12th night, whatever.
I like it. Are there
yeah.
any Shakespeare works that are specifically set at a holiday time? I always assumed they were kind of just around like a weather pattern. Like, it's nice, so it's kind of summer, or it's not nice, so it's not summer. Oh.
Woo!
Thank you for the raid. Hey, thank you, Lost Limey. Hello, Vineyard Warrior.
It's a great question. I don't actually think so. It might be something that I have to look into, but so we've got 12th Night, which is, direct 12 days of Christmas pull, but Love's Labor's Lost, I think, is the closest to Christmas time because they have like a weird, like almost nativity type play, but it's not. It's like a pageant. It's a whole weird, random, very funny thing. And then for holidays in general, Romeo and Juliet takes place in the summer because some of them like have very specific dates. We know exactly when Romeo and Juliet happens because we have reference to Juliet's birthday, which is in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks it's Lammas-tide, which is I think July 31st or something like that.
Okay.
So we know like very specifically when that happens, but I would be interested to see if there are any other plays that have a direct date mention. So it would be
I mean, it's Caesar is the Ides of March.
Also
so
that, yes.
You've got that, but that's about the only other one I can think of.
Yeah.
Interesting. Also, as you were saying that, I was like, okay, so that would make Juliet a Leo. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, she is.
It's like, this makes sense. Okay. All right. Oh, there you go.
Right.
Well,
since
it's not actually Christmas, we're doing a not actually Christmas play, so it fits.
Right. 12th Night is reference to Epiphany. Is that the 12th night of Christmas? Is that the 12th day of Christmas? I don't know anything about religion.
Nope.
But it is, and that's the pull for the title, if nothing else. So yeah, it is a scene from 12th Night, and it is party mode activated. So I'm actually this is kind of a different structure of, I'm not just pulling like one monologue. I'm kind of like giving you the whole vibe of a scene.
Okay. I like this.
I'm going to read a couple pieces of it because I think that as knowing how you work in drawing, I wanted to kind of like give you a couple points.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how that goes. So so it almost moves like the page in the scene, like encapsulated or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, we're gonna try it. We're gonna pull a couple pieces and then we're gonna do that. So it's Act 2, Scene 3. And these are the I guess you can call them subplot characters. Sir Toby, Sir Andrew, Maria, and Malvolio. So this is whole 12th Night is all about Viola and Orsino and Olivia. We've already got that. We've already done that story. But Sir Toby is Olivia's uncle cousin. And he is living at her house, and his friend, Sir Andrew, is very, very rich and wants to marry Olivia. But she's been like, no suitors, no thank you, no please, no. But Toby's like, this guy's rich and loves to party, so like I'm gonna keep telling, no, just wait a few minutes for my niece, like just wait a little bit, just wait. I'm sure she'll love you. Like I am sure of it. Let's just have another night of partying. And Sir Andrew is like, well, this is the last one. But okay. So basically he just like keeps him around, I guess, to fund his drinking. And they love drinking. So at the start of the scene is a really funny wordplay. So Sir Toby says, approach Sir Andrew. Not to be abed after midnight is to be up betimes. And deluculo sugere, thou knowest. Andrew says, nay, by my troth, I know not, but I know to be up late is to be up late. Which is the kind of general a false conclusion. I hate it as an unfilled can. To be up after midnight and go to bed then is early. So that to go to bed after midnight is to go to bed betimes. So no. We're going to bed early, like in the morning, but I can say that we've gone to bed early because it's after midnight. So now it's early morning. So that's the kind of back and forth banter we have. So it's a party. It's well after midnight. They're drinking, they're carousing, and then they start singing. So Fessy the Fool comes in. They just have this back and forth bantery type of thing happening with the Fool. They start singing. It is a whole big thing. Maria comes in. What a caterwauling do you keep here? If my lady have not called up her steward Malvolio and bid him turn you out of doors, never trust me. So Maria comes in. She's like, guys, can you not? Like, we all hate. So Malvolio is this character who's like very sure of himself, very almost thinks of himself above his place, secretly in love with Olivia, pictures himself as the lord of this house, very strict on rules, very grumpy about it. So after this scene is when they all kind of decide to play a joke on Malvolio. It's very cruel-spirited, but very funny in the context of the play. So he is just basically a wet blanket to all of this drinking and carousing.
Okay.
So Maria's like, y'all, can you not? We don't need Malvolio coming in here, but he does. He says, my masters, are you mad or what are you? Have you no wit, manners, nor honesty, but to gabble like tinkers at this time of night? Do you make an alehouse of my lady's house that you speak out your cosier's catches without any mitigation or remorse of voice? Is there no respect of place, persons, nor time in you? And Sir Toby says, we did keep time, sir, in our catches. Snuck up. So like, yeah, when we were dancing, we kept the time in our music.
Oh my gosh. It's so sassy.
It's so sassy. Malvolio says, Sir Toby, I must be round with you. My lady bade me to tell you that, though she harbors you as her kinsman, she's nothing allied to your disorders. If you can separate yourself and your misdemeanors, you are welcome to the house. If not, and it would please you to take leave of her, she's very willing to bid you farewell. And from that, they just start singing. They just start like absolutely laying into Malvolio. Go shake your ears, Maria yells at him after he leaves. That's basically the theme of this scene. Okay. So that's kind of those were the three moments that I wanted to give you. So we've got at the start, we've got the punning on going to bed late or going to bed early. Like it's early morning now, so I can say we get to bed early. Maria coming in and being like, what the heck? And then Malvolio coming in to chide them all, to give them a stern talking to.
Okay.
So, yeah. So those are kind of and like I said, it's a little different than what we've done.
It is, but I like it.
Yeah, I wanted to give you kind of 3 different beats, or I guess 4 technically if you count all of the singing that they do with the Fool in the beginning. Drinking, singing, and then getting yelled at. And I think this scene is so fun because when we're watching it on stage, we're all with Sir Toby and Sir Andrew and Maria and the Fool. Like we are all on their side, I think, through most of the play. The audience is supposed to be, that's the goal of it. And we're supposed to look at Malvolio as crabby and cranky and thinking too highly of himself and hating fun. Like Ace Tigress says, an adversary of festive enjoyment and community.
Okay.
Now, all that being said, while you start going, I'm going to tell a little story of my own. How this Christmas is called, how I came to terms with the fact that I'm a Malvolio now.
Oh, okay. All right. Also, I want you to know it's interesting, just as my pin, because I think I know which direction I want to go. But for the first time, I can see this play out in two very specific ways that are two very different settings and costuming and stuff like that. I think I'm going to go with the one that's a little bit more wacky, just because that feels fun. But there was part of it. So originally, as you were explaining it, it's very... it appeals to me because it's very Jane Austen Regency, where you've got the drunken fools and you've got the master of the thing, and then like there are always the female characters who come in who are kind of like, we're gonna get in trouble, but also I'm with you, and so it had a very feel. But I think I'm gonna go a slightly different direction because it's a little bit more off. So
okay,
I'm ready. All right,
I'm excited for that. Yeah, so we live in a neighborhood that loves setting off fireworks. Basically every year, from before Christmas, we only got home on Christmas Eve, so like I don't know how long it lasted this year, but usually from like the 23rd until the 3rd of January, it's fireworks every single night, which is not great when you have a dog who is a big huge baby. But it's when it gets dark until early morning, like 3-4 a.m. is the fireworks. And we've lived with it, we've dealt with it, we've done the best we can to put in noise canceling headphones and just try and sleep. But Christmas Eve, our next door neighbors were having a party with karaoke in the backyard, which is fine and great. We got home about 10 p.m. We wrapped our presents. We watched some TV. We had been, so exhausted from a week of Disney that we were like, we're not gonna be able to sleep through this. But I guess we're gonna try. It's fine. It's 1 a.m. It's Christmas Eve. Let them have their fun.
Mm-hmm.
The let them have their fun really wore off at 2 a.m. When Mike went over and asked them nicely to maybe move the party inside, and they said no and were super rude to him. And the let them have their fun super wore off at 4 a.m.
Stop.
When it was still going. And I called in my first ever noise complaint, which nothing happened from. And they partied until 5 a.m. And then finally stopped. And it was like really hard because I feel like I'm always like frustrated with neighborhood noises, like when they go past a reasonable hour of the night, because I just can't understand the usually it's fireworks. And like I can't understand the appeal of 3 a.m. fireworks when that people in the neighborhood either have pets or PTSD or any type of thing. It just feels rude to me in general. But like I also have always felt like a Scrooge or like a Malvolio because of it, because I'm like, I understand like it's a holiday season, people are gonna do what they want to do.
Well, it's weird for me in being, I guess, I don't know, maybe just in my part of the Northeast, like holiday fireworks around this time of year are never a thing. Like summertime, I expect it because that's our, it's nice and around 4th of July, but we definitely don't get as much celebratory fireworks. So I feel like that's such a specific noise where you're like, no, if it's a loud house party, okay, like that, all right, I can kind of see. If it's not a work night, like it sucks if I have to work on a Saturday, but that's not a traditional thing. So I cut people slack, like, all right, you're up late on a Friday because that's what the majority of the world does. But with fireworks, it's such a disruption to so many people. Like,
and it is, we do live in a primarily Mexican neighborhood, and it is a very Mexican tradition to do fireworks all the way through Christmas. And I get that. But the screaming until 5 a.m., I couldn't get behind. And I felt like, and that's one of the reasons I chose this scene, because I was like, oh, Malvolio, I feel you, dude. I feel you, my dude. Please accept my apologies for the last 20 years of thinking that you're like some sort of villain in this play, because man, if it's after midnight enough for Sir Toby to be making these jokes about going to bed early, like
yep,
it's the worst. And pretty much what he did was like go down and ask them to be quiet, and they said no. And I was like, oh, this just happened. Like this just happened in real life. My real life is a Shakespeare play now.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's an interesting perspective shift to go from, your whole life thinking that Sir Toby and Sir Andrew are like the fun of this play, but really like when you're an adult and you haven't been able to sleep all night, you're up, I mean, and like it's hard for me to sleep in a lot because like it's light out and I've gotten used to getting up at 5, 6 for the gym. So at 8:30 on Christmas morning, I was up after 3.5 hours of sleep. Yeah, it was awful.
Were you at least able to sneak in a holiday nap?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's nice.
We laid down at like 2:00 to take a nap and they started playing music again. And I was like, do they have a camera in our house?
How do they know?
How do they know? But Mike gave me earbuds. And so I played my like rain music through my earphones and slept for a couple hours.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you though, because I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. But
right.
There are times
it's
when
Christmas
just like,
Eve.
But still, like, please, there are other people here too. Like,
yep. It just was like such a, and like we love our neighborhood. We love living where we do. It's just that like, Mike was like, yeah, and they brought up the fact that 3 years ago we asked them to keep their dogs from barking all the way through the night. And I was like, why did they think that makes them look good? Like, that's not a point in there. Like, we're just being consistent that we would like to sleep at the nighttime.
Yes.
Rather than, because there was like a month that their dogs would start barking at like 3 a.m. and like go all the way till 7.
How did they sleep through that? Or were they just not home?
I don't know. They're outside. Maybe the dogs were, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But it was very stressful.
Yeah.
And like for Mike to have any sense of like confrontation, because normally he's the most Sir Toby of them all,
Yeah.
But when he was like, I'm going to go over and ask them to move it inside, I was like, oh, my hero.
It's like, I didn't think I could fall in love with you anymore, but I just did.
I just did. So Ace Tigers puts an interesting note in chat. Malvolio is still a villain. Doesn't mean he doesn't make a good point. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with a villain. And not just because of last night. I don't know if I agree with a villain title. He's a nuisance for sure. He's very full of himself. He has hyper idealistic sensibility about, his place and himself. But like, I don't know if I would call him a villain. He's kind of a butthole.
Sadly, just being a butthole doesn't necessarily make you a villain, even though you're no fun to be around.
It's true, and I don't think he deserves what happens. So basically, for those of you who aren't familiar, Maria...
This is my favorite part when it gets to the spoiler parts of Shakespeare, because it's new information to me, and I get genuinely excited, even though it is a very long, known conclusion to a story. So, I love it.
So Maria's like, okay, I know how we can play a trick on this dodo, but I don't know what that was. This guy. I have been, because she's Olivia's, maid or handmaid or whatever. Mm-hmm. I can write exactly like Olivia. I can make my handwriting look exactly like hers. So I'm going to write a letter. And we're going to leave it in the way for Malvolio to find. And it basically, this is where Swan, some are born great, some achieve greatness, some have greatness thrust upon them, comes in.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's very cool.
Yeah. So, let's see. Basically, it's like to my unknown or to my unknown love. Let's see. To the unknown beloved, is how she addresses the letter, or how they address the letter. They leave it in the walk for Malvolio to find. He reads it. Let's see. Jove knows I love, but who? Lips do not move. No man must know. I may command where I adore, but silence like a Lucrece knife with bloodless stroke my heart doth gore. MOAI doth sway my life. And he's like, all of those letters are in my name. And so then he has this whole like, oh, this is my life. I'm going to be sitting and, ordering Sir Toby around and lounging about, spending the afternoon with Olivia in bed in her robes, and like has this like whole big thing. And they're all hiding in a tree laughing at him. And she says, okay, well, in the letter, it says, if this fall into thy hand, revolve. In my stars I am above thee, but be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Thy fates open their hands, let thy blood and spirit embrace them. And to inure thyself what thou art like to be, cast thy humble slough and appear fresh. Be opposite with the kinsmen, surly with servants, thy tongue hang arguments of state, put thyself into the trick of singularity. She thus advises thee that sighs for thee. Remember who commended thy yellow stockings and wished to see thee ever cross-gartered, etc., etc., etc. So she says, you're going to laugh hysterically even if I'm sad. You're going to wear yellow stockings with cross-gartering, which is like a very foolish look.
Okay.
You're going to yell at everyone. You're going to do this, that, and the other thing. So he comes in to Olivia dressed in yellow stockings, cross-gartered, acting a fool. And she's like, what is this? And Maria and Sir Toby are like, oh man, Malvolio's crazy now. We're going to lock him up in a dungeon, play more tricks on him, tell him that, like, gaslight him into thinking that the room is light when it's really dark. Like, and they just are very, very cruel.
Oh my goodness.
And finally, like at the end, Olivia finds out what happened. She's like, let him out of jail. Y'all are pretty stupid. Like, that was a mean trick. And then they all laugh, of course. Because it's a comedy and everyone thinks Malvolio's the bad guy, I guess. I just don't think he deserves that level of cruelty.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah. Yeah. And before that, all he's really done is be super grouchy and tell them to stop partying at 4 a.m. So I don't know. Listener, you decide. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do this. All right. First of all, what I'm seeing is a frat house.
Yeah.
Second of all, what I'm seeing is orange. So I'm assuming it's a UT, University of Texas at Austin frat house.
That's fair.
Hook 'em.
Yeah, I don't know. I try and mix up my colors sometimes because I think it helps me for some reason, even when I'm just doing layouts, even though I'm going to desaturate all these colors and draw on top of it, I like to mix it up. Just like I like using different color. Get out of there. Excuse me. I'm gonna call you Toby. That's what you've a very stinky butt. Very stinky butt. I think she missed me. But yeah, also I think it's funny because some of the scenes we've done that are more serious and more heavy, they've been a little bit more somber. So I've drawn them in blues and purples, but this one feels very light and up. And I think it's a subconscious, picking colors and doing that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What do you mean by you're going to desaturate them and draw over them? Because I know like the process of it, but.
So what I'll do, so I like this. This is my, as we've talked about before, normally if I had the scene and we had talked through it, I would thumbnail every page out. So this is kind of just the bigger version of thumbnailing. So what I'll end up going back and doing is I'll take it way down like this. So it's really light so that when I go over and kind of give it my more final lines, which will probably be in the deck of color. There we go. Not that I can find my things. When I'm actually giving detail to the characters, this would be like the inking stage.
Oh, okay.
So I'm still using all of those lines that I put down there and the movement and the action of it, but I don't need to draw in the details the first time around because I know I can go in and place them. It's more important that I get, the posing and the staging right. So that's kind of what used to be, you'd take a light box and do another whole sheet on top of it and ink over it and that type of stuff. Now I can do all digitally and just clean it up. It's the cleanup stage.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So tell me why you have to desaturate it if it's going to be on another layer. Like if you're going to draw the ink on another layer.
Part of it is personal preference.
Okay.
I could keep it fully saturated like it is. In my brain, this is very busy, and because I work so rough and so loose, like there's so many lines here as I'm figuring stuff out. So it tends to then almost make me subconsciously make my inks really like sketchy, which is not what I want to do in that level. But also part of keeping the movement to it and not just straight, tracing over each individual line, which I feel like really strips down the energy from the scene. So if it's much lighter, I'm still using, my perspective on what this would be. And then in my case, kind of making some corrections on it, but I'm also keeping that looseness to it so that, it still has the feel that I want of it, but I'm not also working quite as loose and sketchy. So, yeah.
That's really cool. Also, you just drew a cup like that? You just made 4 lines and it was a cup? And it looks so much better. When I was doing that stupid little ghost Spooktober drawings, the number of times I tried to draw a cup, and I was just like, how do you do this? How do you make a cup?
Yeah, they're obnoxious. I hate wine bottles and wine glasses, even though I literally draw them as part of my job sometimes. I hate them. I'm terrible at them. I hate drawing them. I'm not good at it. I'm just like, I'll just trace it. I will get an image and I will trace over it so that we don't have to do this terrible thing anymore.
So funny. Oh my God, that wine glasses gave me such a hard time. I was like, who does this?
Yeah, so I think some of this definitely comes from animation background, and just kind of how I like to create my art. It's very similar to how I work traditionally, so adapting that to the digital way. So
that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. Yeah, because I knew it was like between penciling and inking, like your colored background or whatever, but I didn't realize that. Also, I kind of didn't realize that you could do the same thing without being digital, like with a light box or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. It's cool. It is very cool. And it makes you, at least for me, it's always made me appreciate the way people were able to create art like I do now, but before we had all of the technology that we do.
Right.
Because some of this, I'm like, this takes so much more time to do it traditionally. Like,
or even the fact that you just lassoed that whole beer pong table and moved it.
Yep.
Like you just moved it instead of having to erase it and completely
redraw it. Yep.
That's bonkers to me. Technology is so cool.
It is so cool. And it's what's cool and what I like telling especially the kids that I teach, we have all of these amazing utilities at our fingertips, but the technique and the actual like art practices of it are still the same. Like just like I was saying to you, I would still draw this in a coal erase colored pencil first, either go back over and just trace right over that directly, and then when I scanned it, erase out that specific color layer, or actually ink it onto a new sheet. So I'm doing the same thing. We've just compressed it down into being able to do that on the computer. But, the solid drawing, the emphasis on character, the exaggeration, all of that is still there no matter how I'm creating the art, which is, in my opinion, the important part. So,
yeah.
I'm trying to do I want a big thing of like jungle juice punch, but I'm having trouble drawing it in silhouette. So we shall see how this
You're having trouble drawing a trash can full of alcohol?
Yeah.
I have never had jungle juice.
Anytime I've ever experienced any super mixed alcohol from a party, it's never been a good thing.
I guess. Yeah, because I didn't start drinking until after college. So I missed that.
I'm going to say missed is a...
Okay, so now that you have a frat route, what was the other... Oh, you said Victoria. You said Regency.
That's Regency. Right. Yep. Just because I could see it as because they would hold these big balls, and because that was their big form of entertainment and the way that they gossiped with each other and the way that they interacted. And like you would always have the older landlord or the master of the manor. If he wasn't going to Austen specifically, if he wasn't one of the ones engaging in the frivolity, he was then always the one who was like, why are you doing this? Please stop. This is not becoming. So that fit really well. And just oh my gosh, the one guy living off of the other guy for his money and the drinking, like it's so Austen. It's so Austen. But though it's funny as you were saying it, because those are usually the characters that are incredibly charismatic and incredibly charming that interact with the main, we'll say, female protagonist, but they're not the good guys. They're not the ones you want her to end up with, even though they are so charming and exciting and fun. So it's a fun thing, but that's I don't know. I like that balance of it where it's not just black or white, kind of like you were saying with Malvolio. He's not just a villain or just a bad guy. Like he is a multidimensional character because he goes through a lot of stuff. And again, being cranky doesn't make you a villain.
Also, as you were saying that, and because this is Longhorn, yellow, orange, whatever, burnt orange of UT Austin, can you put a sign for this school somewhere that is UT Austin, but spell it like Jane?
Yes. I can do that.
So it doesn't take a lot to make me happy, Swan. But
I like it. But yeah, the ongoing party and this type of shenanigans, I guess, like it just felt so frat rush is so all it felt. So
yeah, I guess who is I suppose we'll find out, but who's the Malvolio in a frat experience? I've never like been to a frat party or anything. Like I don't really know.
Nope, neither. I'm going off of entertainment,
movies.
Which is real life. So I was thinking, all I could think of as far as like sorority, that there was usually like a house mother. So I'm assuming for frats, there's like a house father or somebody, or maybe a house mother. So at least I know, and this is kind of tying into, I was driving through Cortland relatively recently, which has a very big college in it. And there are these amazing, humongous Victorian, like painted lady houses that are all frat houses. And they're in a row next to each other, but there's also a lot of other homes around there. So I'm figuring like this could just be, I literally want to show a neighbor in their bathrobe, like showing up and being like, hey, stop, we live here too. Because it's a bit of a trope. So he plays on that kind of conscious understanding of it. So yeah.
That's awesome.
He's going to be either the landlord or, somebody associated. I always think they always do what, like the dean of the college or something like that shows up. Yeah. So
the dean is not getting paid to show up at frat houses at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No,
like
he's definitely not. So
he would be like, yeah, okay. And what do you want me to do about that?
I'm home and I'm not coming in. So no.
That's really fun. Make it Mike. Mike doesn't have a bathrobe, but you can put him in Christmas PJs going over to ask the neighbors to be quiet.
Because he's got, and it's funny because again, I guess because we did talk about it being around Christmas, and even though, it's not cold where you guys are, like I just have this image of like, kind of got his arms crossed, but in that cold way, like I was comfy in my bed and now I'm here and I'm so mad about it.
I'm so put out.
I'm very put out. Mike. He's got a beard now.
Oh, it looks like him.
Little thoughts. Well, I think it's fun too. And I think it's the fun of I'm going to try and say this so it doesn't sound so creepy, but I love to watch my friends, but I like watching how my friends emote, like how you make your faces and when you're talking about stuff. And I think with your theater background, both you and Mike are very expressive. So there's a lot of personality that comes through. I know, right? In your body language and in the way that you react and emote. So it's visually very fun because I don't know, there's just a lot of, I was like, oh, that's cool. And I get to, kind of watch how you do that. Which again, it sounds so creepy. It's not meant to be creepy, but
I get it though. Like I get it. Because it's the same way I'll watch people for like, character studies or for even writing, like trying to base writing off of ways people, like actual people, act and speak, trying to listen to like voice cadence and filler words and try to use that to vary up characterization is like, yeah, I guess it's a little creepy, but you got to give him
creepy.
only 1.5 feet, Swan.
Oh, that's true. Which was his left foot? Is his left foot in the boot, or is his right foot? Okay, put it in the boot.
The boot. He did all of Disney without the boot.
He's a champ,
right?
That is no joke.
No, it was amazing. The one day that I was like really nervous was, so we went and we did Epcot on Tuesday, and that was pretty easy because we walked through and it was pouring rain. So we did like 2 hours in the morning. We went back to our hotel. We dried all our clothes. We took a little nap, and then we went back at like 4 or 5 o'clock. So it was like a kind of a split day. We did like 10 miles that day, but it didn't feel like we were on our feet all day. We also weren't waiting in line a lot. And this is something that, yeah, I struggle with standing. I don't struggle with walking. I can walk all day long. Like I can walk 20 miles in a day easy, but standing in line.
No, that's what wrecks me. And people, it's funny because I don't think people understand that. But I was like, no, I'm okay. Like I will get tired if we walk because my ankles are bad. But
yeah,
it is the standing that will wreck my heels. And then once that hurts, like it is hard for me to come back from that.
Yep. So, yeah. It was, so we weren't doing any of that really on Tuesday. Let's see, what did we do for rides? This is like my Disney vacation stream. We did the golf ball, whatever that is called. Yeah, the dome where they do like the technology stuff, which was really fun. And then we did the zero gravity simulator where you like get shot into space and it like pushes you against the back of the chair. It was wild. And then we stood in line for the Frozen ride, which we ended up getting evacuated off of.
Is it broke?
Yeah, it broke down. And it was so gorgeous and so stunning. And I was not mad that it broke down because it was a log flume and I did not want to get wet again after I'd been so wet all morning. So it broke down right before the drop.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was like, yay. But yeah, so we didn't really stand much. And then we did Universal on Wednesday. And we did 3 rides in the 8 hours we were there.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Was it all spent in Harry Potter land?
Not even. Because Harry Potter land was super crowded and they did not have a mask mandate indoors. They like just did it the day we were there. They announced like they were reinstating it, but nobody was wearing masks. It was super overwhelming, and we were like, I need to leave. We need to leave here right now. And we like the rides were really, really good at Universal. But it was 2 hour minimum in every line. And it was not.
That's impressive. It's not impressive, but it's overwhelming with it. You guys just being 2 people too. Like you could even do the single person ride and single rider line. There it is. That's how words work. But
yeah, it was not super fun. Plus we had like the Disney Epcot experience or like the Disney experience with like everything being so efficient and so convenient and so like have a magical day. And then Universal, they were like, take your freaking hat off. And we were like, oh God.
Yeah, there's a different kind of magic at Universal.
It's a different kind of magic.
Yeah.
Hello, Matthias 21. Okay. What's up?
Also, officials, thank you, Sonata Mag, for telling me to save my work because it had probably been a bit. So I appreciate you.
Now, riddle me this, Swan.
Yes.
How does you're in Procreate?
I am in Clip Studio.
Clip Studio. Okay.
Yep.
Here is my question for every non-web based program, like even Adobe. Adobe can save things to the cloud, so they have like web access available or whatever. Why don't more programs have autosave, like a Google Docs or?
There are ways you can enable it. There are many ways. Like I know my CorelDRAW will autosave after a certain amount of time. I think I have it set to like 1 or 2 minutes. At least for what I have found. Greetings from Argentina. Hello.
Cool.
It slows down the program because a lot of the processing power is then devoted to backing up your work. So you'll go like if you put on an intense filter onto something, the processing power it will be to do that will then kind of be compromised because it's also trying to save. So I am positive things have changed in the years, but I have that kind of like I don't want to say PTSD because it's not that bad, but like that like little bit in the back of my brain where it's like you can't tax the program because then it will crash. And what you're always worried about with that is it corrupting your file. Is because it'll make it so that there's a backup of it, but because we weren't able to actually save it in the middle of it, it's just an unusable file now, so you can't even open it. So on like older versions of Photoshop, I would actually turn off the auto backup or only make it for like every 10 minutes because either my computer system couldn't handle it or the program would get really glitchy and buggy when I would do it. And I would end up losing my work anyways because the program would crash halfway through the autosave and then nothing that I would try and open would ever open for me again. That's a a particular experience that I would be happy to never experience again. So there are backup files. I don't think I have any for Clip Studio because I just don't think about turning them on. I have it for CorelDRAW because it starts when you first load in the program. It's already there and ready to do it. So once in a while, I'll go in and change it. But I have a newer machine now, so it doesn't seem to crash as much, which is nice. But it's my guess is because the actual software itself is so much more dense than some of the streamline that like Canva or any of the Google Suite stuff is doing. I think because there's so many more working pieces and working parts a part of the design software. It's also like I think of if you had like too many people working in the same like Google Sheets where like you're getting things edited and there's like so much
it slows down and overlaps.
Yeah. So I think there's some of that too. I know this is also I've been out of Adobe land for a very long time. So I know that they have more cloud-based stuff and I hear from friends who use the newer versions of it that there are better ways that it saves and backs up. So they've definitely worked on it. I think it just for all of us who kind of came up through the ranks of the older programs, we got burnt so much by it that we're all just kind of like, no, we don't trust you. Like,
I don't trust you to save my work. No. You're going to ruin my work.
You're going to ruin it, so I'll just do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I got it. So, yeah, I think it was surreal to me when I started teaching Procreate on iPads and the kids, like, their program would crash and we close it out and all of their work is just there. And, like, I have those moments where once again, I'm like, oh no, I'm starting to sympathize with the villains and all of these or like the old characters because you're just like, you don't understand.
I used to walk 2 ways up a snowy hill to save my work.
And now it just does it for you?
Yeah. You kids will never understand the meaning of losing your work.
Yeah, there were moments where that was like on the tip of my tongue and I'm just like, don't be that person. It's not going to mean anything to them, just like it never meant anything to you when people would say that. So, but tried to spin that into this is a really beautiful feature and you should be very appreciative of it. And just remember that not all software operates this way. So it's good to get into the habit of saving your work. And like, Miss Emily, why are you crying? I'm like, it's fine.
I feel that way a lot with citations when I'm teaching citations because there are a million programs that can do it for you now. Like you just hit in like Google Docs has a citation builder. There's an extension. All of everything's there for you. And like as a teacher, it like took me a minute to be like, I don't care if you learn how to cite things. The internet's going to do it for you. So like, as long as you can as long as you know where to find what it's supposed to look like so that you're not taking a bad citation. Cause like there are so many bad citation builders. You just have to make sure like that you're checking it. Cause one of the one of the extensions, if a student is in the college library database, the database gives a citation for every article, just gives it. And if you try to use the extension, it'll say, you know, like blocked, or like sign in, registration, whatever database. And then it'll have this like big long link, which because the extension doesn't have a login to the college, so it can't get the proper citation. And it's things like that that make me so annoyed, because that'll show up in their annotated bibliography. And I'm like, did you even read it? Like, I went through, I'm like, here's what it looks like. Don't do this. You can get it here. Like, because it's so easy for them, the mistakes make me like even angrier.
Yes.
Than if it were just like a normal mistake in a citation that they built themselves.
Yes. Nope. I feel that. And what I think definitely infuriated me, but I was trying to, you know, is that because the kids aren't dealing with the programs crashing on them or having to have that backup, or then even troubleshoot what happens when your program crashes, or when something doesn't save, or just when something doesn't quite go right and the program stalls, or I don't want to say crashes in the bad way, but just kind of stops, and you have to essentially turn it off and turn it back on again. Like, there wasn't even that problem solving anymore, where I'm just like, they're like, well, why isn't it working? I'm like, because sometimes it just doesn't work. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. The program didn't do anything wrong. It just, sometimes it just has a, you know, shorts out a little bit, and you have to close it out and start it again. What I'm trying to encourage you to be really excited is that, hey, that thing you were working on is still there.
Yeah.
So I worry that without some of that they have to overcome, there's not as much
rebounding skills.
Yeah, the rebounding and the being able to troubleshoot, because things run so smoothly now, and they don't have to worry about that. Like, so they don't worry about any of it. But I was like, no, there's still some things you have to work through. Okay. No, all right.
You still Grandma. You still should worry about some things.
Yeah. It's like, I'll go take my nap now. It's fine.
Go take my nap, Grandma. Oh man, yeah, it's hard to get old and grumpy.
It's very hard to get old and grumpy,
but you know, it happens to everyone, and I think we're doing a good job of if you recognize it in yourself that there are some things you're old and grumpy about. Future Skeleton says, no, it seems so easy. Well, this all started because of you. You are featured in this. Yeah, there you are.
You're mad down here right now because I'm working on the other piano.
Yeah.
But you're staying down there because I'm going to come back to get you later.
Since you've just joined us, we are doing a scene from Twelfth Night where Sir Toby and Sir Andrew are up partying until roughly 4 or 5 a.m. And Malvolio comes in and is like, can you please be quiet? Maybe be quiet. And they're like, nah. And then they troll him for a while. And then he gets mad and grumpy. So that's why you're so old and grumpy. Because we just went through this. This is a prime example of Shakespeare imitating Shakespeare. You're also cold. You're also cold because it's Christmas.
You're in a cold place.
Yeah. That's how you know it's not really you, because it's in a place that has temperature below 75 degrees.
Simply a version of you.
Yeah. An alternate reality version. Talk me through what's happening here.
I'm trying something weird and I don't know if it's working.
I like it so far. So I want to know, but I don't know what it is. So.
No, that's fair. Okay, so I have this idea that because we are not playing this straight through top to bottom, that the scene is kind of multiple parts of this event that's happening. It felt very on point to have someone, like the idea that in this frat party there's someone taking pictures. And honestly, because Polaroids ended up coming back recently, I'm fine using them. But so the idea being that through this little transition that you're getting here, you're getting to see different moments of debauchery from the boys in Polaroid form. So we're moving through that information much quicker. And then I want the hand to be Maria. So I'm trying then to figure out. So this is like her announcing herself and slamming her hand down on the table to get their attention and introduce her into the scene and introduce her frustration into that, so that she's kind of, you have the movement of the pictures taking you through and she is stopping it, and then the camera is essentially panning up so that you see her. I'm just trying to figure out exactly then how to get her into the next scene. But I want to see a table that has, you know, drink rings on it and has spilled stuff on it, and, you know, something that keeps you in this scene that we're in.
That's so fun.
If it works, it's kind of, it's one of those where like I think it works in my head, but sometimes I have to work through it a couple of times to really get it to set. So
Yeah, I like, that's really fascinating, that use of photos. And I mean, I have a friend that takes Polaroids all the time when, you know, we're at parties or whatever, and it's just like, it's such a cool, it has come back, and it's such a great way. One of the things that we are registering for is, for our wedding, is Polaroid film. Because our guest book is gonna be, take a Polaroid, sign it, and then we'll, I don't know, we'll do something with all of them. Like we'll figure something out. But because people can take, you know, 2 pictures, keep one from this for themselves and put one in our guest book, and they're immediate.
That's the thing. There's so, like, I know that we have cell phones and we can take digital pictures. So, but I think there's a beautiful thing about Polaroids, and I think why they've stayed is you have that beautiful immediacy of a smartphone camera, but you have the tactile physical thing at the end of it. So,
yeah, it'll be really fun to have like a wall of Polaroids from our wedding, to just like see the people that were there, and to like have a visual printed reminder, because we're gonna have albums, you know, we're gonna have wedding photos, people will take photos, we'll have a photographer, you know, like we have all of those things that'll end up online. But to have that like printed photo board, or like that, you know, like you said, that tactile element is going to be so cool. So I love that. I love having a movement through the party through Polaroids. I think that's so fun.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I like finding fun ways, and this is, I'm always impressed with filmmakers when they find ways to do this, where you're able to tell a whole bunch of story without actually taking up a whole bunch of time, and that, and have it be understandable and legible, because I feel like that's a very tricky. Yes, that's really what it is. I just love me a good montage.
We tried to do a montage scene on Adventure Incorporated. And it is very hard in an audio medium, an audio only medium, to do a montage scene. And I think it was in season 1, and I think we were planning, Mike can correct me, but I think we were planning for the heist, which is one of my favorite episodes. But we were planning for something, and we just tried to do montage type, yeah, it was a heist, montage type scenes, and it just was so I'm not sure how well it worked, because you don't have those quick cuts. Like even in improv, when someone's running across the stage to do quick cuts, or visually, like when you have like the rapid fire cuts that you see, you don't really have that unless you're adding audio design to do like a whoosh or a snap or something in between each little cut scene. It doesn't work as yeah, exactly. Like he says, I think we needed an audio engineer like Quid Pro Roll. Shout out to Gabe in Quid Pro Roll, who does some incredible audio work, like to show those different special effects that not all of us can do with our voices.
Yeah.
But yeah, montages are amazing, and definitely easier in a visual medium.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting too with this, as I'm going through it, is it's one of those where it works, but I think again, because you are combining so many elements and so many different things, it is more work for me to work through it to make it all make sense than it normally is with a a straightforward story where it's going panel to panel and kind of moving in a linear fashion. So it's fun, but it's definitely, I hope you guys enjoy it. You're getting to watch me struggle a little bit more as I work through it. I don't say struggle, just this is my work through. These are my planning stages and how I'm changing things on the fly and doing that. I'm sorry, I have to move the mic again.
One quick point. Forging Winton says sometimes the best sound effects are the ones you make with your voices. And I'm just going to have to assume he's talking about our subscribe sound on the Serious Business Twitch channel, twitch.tv/SRSBIZ_network. If you join us every third Thursday of the month for our tavern night, hit subscribe with your Bezos bucks. You can hear me go, which was clipped and uploaded as our subscribe sound. Because I'm a genius. I'm so good at vocal special effects. You won't even know it's me. You'll think, oh, that was definitely the Twitch robot.
I mean, I do love we're super serious. Like, that makes me happy. So
yeah. I also love that. That is Anthony's actual kids laughing, though.
That's amazing. I was wondering who it was. I was like, that doesn't sound like any of you guys laughing. So
no, it's so cute. They're so adorable. Like, I think little kid laughter,
it's the best.
There's something about like little kid voices in general. Like when we were at Disney, like hearing like little kids be in awe of anything, it was just a million times sweeter.
Yeah.
Back to your time movement though. I think this is really cool. And it wasn't even something that I had anticipated when I chose this kind of cut point scene. Because I kind of wanted to get just a vibe of the party scene. Because we've never really done something this happy before.
I was gonna say we've done something silly, but this is definitely a happy, playful thing.
Yeah. And I know we have Malvolio at the end to, keep it super serious. But yeah, we've never done something so lighthearted, and I wanted to show all of the movement in the scene because you've done such amazing work with monologues or soliloquies or like short conversations of dialogue that we've done it. And I wanted to throw something a little new and different at you, but since I'm not a comics person, like I didn't really know how that would work. Like I didn't know if it would just be little like snippets of time. I didn't even think about trying to show the movement. And this is very cool. It's just very cool, Swan. Leave me alone.
No, I love it. It's fun. And it's a challenge for me, which is partially why I like it. Because again, this is how I know, like, nope, art is the right place, because I was like, here's this really weird thing that's challenging. I was like, I want to do more. Let's do more of that. So like, I'm probably doing the right stuff. So I love it. I love getting to work through the puzzle of it. I know we've talked about that sometimes on Doodle Crew. Is when it comes to logo design or different parts of comics, it's the problem solving and it's the puzzling through of how you're going to tell it that is actually kind of part of the fun. It can be incredibly frustrating, but it is a really fun part of working through the art.
So. Yeah, that's super cool. Are there traditional or more traditional techniques of montaging in comics? Because obviously you know how they do it in movies. They play an 80s pump up tune and show a bunch of short scenes, but how, like, is there a standard way to show the passage of time in comics?
Ooh, standard?
Yeah,
I think you will see a lot of comics that will do so regular comic page to have about as many. I mean, you can always break the mold and go crazy, but like 3x3, so a 9-panel comic where they're all individual, like uniquely the same squares. That's a pretty tight page. If you get much smaller than that, it's hard to see what's in each one. But you'd have kind of each one of them be a different vignette that has a similar consistent character moving through it, and either watching them age, watching someone, especially if it's a long period of time, like you'll introduce a kid who is an infant, like an actual just newborn baby in the first one. The next one you'll show them walking. The next one you'll show them like outside on a bike. If you really need to jump a bunch of time, do that. Or if you have someone like an elderly person who is, we'll say, like celebrating Valentine's Day or something, and then you see them like in the summer gardening, and then you see them in the snow and they start to look older. Like,
weather. Sure.
weather's a great way to do it. Especially because I always think of like Spider-Man, because he's going through the changes of New York City. So you'll see different things happening in New York City. If it is a period piece, you will often see, especially because so many of them do take place in New York City, you'll see different events that were happening at that time. So you'll see protests, or, I always think of like the garbage strike. Like, that's a very specific thing. So you could watch like the garbage in the background just pile up and pile up and pile up and stuff like that. I think at one point there was a garbage strike.
Oh,
I could be making things up. It might have just happened in the comic and not been real. Don't fact check me. I don't need that.
That's so cool though.
But yeah, like, I think that's why one of the many reasons why comics excites me so much is because you get to do all of these little things. The nonverbal storytelling. It's storytelling with art.
Yeah, I'm just looking at like our plants.
Yeah.
And thinking about how like you could use a plant in the background, like either a tree like growing or like something.
Yep. Yeah. Anything that shows growth, anything that shows seasonal change. Like, obviously, if you were, and so we'll say using Texas specifically, because you guys don't get such wide variety of weather, you could do a plant growing, or any of like the bushes that really grow or fill out or have a specific blooming season. Because even in Hawaii, that has a consistent temperature, there's still a blooming season for certain varietals. So
yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, like Forging Winton says, like up, way to wreck everyone. And I wonder about the similarities of storyboarding animated films and comics. Is it a kind of like a really clear crossover, or is there more?
Me personally,
it's going to end up like.
I think they're intrinsically linked, and I think, I don't know if that's just because visual storytelling, shares a lot of similarities, but when I was working on animations and I was doing storyboards, I loved that. So then when I started doing comics, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all the stuff I literally loved about animation without any of the stuff I didn't like doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're very, very close. I don't think they necessarily started out that way, because you have a lot of animation in the US finding its infancy out in California, comics in its infancy finding finding itself in New York City and the East Coast. So you had a lot of difference in where they were starting up from. Plus, you also have the very big split between like actual funny page comic strips versus comic books, and how those were being produced, and how that art was being created, because that's you have a very different goal in mind. You don't need to have crazy character exaggeration. You can have a static character in all three panels telling the story, because the joke is the important part of that, and the characters are there just to facilitate it. Whereas with comics, the storytelling is the more important part. So yeah, that's kind of answered your question.
Yeah, no, it does. It's fascinating, because like a visual movie medium is so different than just a visual medium, like, because you have that, even though it's animated, it's all drawn, like you have so much more that you can tease out in a film. I think that's super fascinating. Showing the passage of time is not something I've ever thought of. Like I said, like when I picked this scene, I didn't even think about having to show the in-between parts.
Yeah. No, again, I think you could still tell this scene without that. Like, I don't think you lose anything by it, which is also why I think you have storytelling in comics in a lot of different ways. And like I'm trying to think. I'm sorry. I'm so excited about this, and I'm not drawing at all. But
no,
so
I'm excited about this.
So there's an amazing relaunch of the Miss Marvel comics, which has now been out for a number of years. But it's when Kamala Khan became Miss Marvel. So it was a new relaunch of a character with the same name, which is, again, it's tedious in comics history because of all these things. But it kind of launched as it had a big release, but it wasn't their flagship book by any means. But they still got really good artists on it. So I have this page from one of those comics where the main character Kamala is interacting and she's in a park and there's a party going on. So there's probably about 60 little background characters that are at this party, but you're following her. But throughout, it might even be multiple pages. Throughout her story, anytime she's at this park, there are other people in the background who have their own storylines that they're doing. So the extras in the scene like are having things happen to them. Like you watch this one guy, it's kind of like Where's Waldo? You follow him and he does something throughout the thing. Does it have any effect on the story? Does it impact the main character at all? No, but it's these beautiful little add-ons that happen in the story that make it that much more engaging for me as a reader to see. But it's also one of those where if you miss it, it doesn't matter. You didn't miss the main story. You can still enjoy her superhero story in this, but you can also be like, oh my gosh, this funny guy happened, thing happened at the party, but then like he's actually a student at her school. So you see him pop up again. He might never get any lines or be a main character, but it's that part of the art. Whereas for me as an artist, it's super fun because you get to kind of have you can tell any story you want with the extras in the background, the Ovid of Community where you're just like, he was in Cougar Town. But again, so we'll reference that specifically. When they end up playing out those things and they pay off seasons and seasons later, and it's a throwaway thing that unless you were really paying attention, doesn't matter at all. But if you were, it's the most like rewarding thing. That's how I would compare them I think some of the artists just do it for them and their own amusement, but also for the people who pick up on it, we appreciate it that much more. And it makes it feel that much more real and that much more like a real world and a real place that the story is taking place in.
That's so cool. And also like thinking ahead to when that eventually will become a movie or a TV show, having consistency in background actors, because you're going to have the same pool of background actors for your whole film. That's just how it works. And to be able to give them like stories of their own so that they're like, there's consistency and that there's movement and that, like you said, the world feels real.
Yeah.
That's so freaking cool.
Well, and I think I'm going to congratulate you. And I believe it, even though I've not seen your productions, when you talk about how you want to include people in the stage performances. So you will add characters to scenes, even if they're not specifically interacting with the main characters, but the background people are fun. And if they're having fun with it, sometimes even though the main actors are doing an amazing job, you're paying attention to like, what are those guys at the cart doing in the back of that scene? Like, it's hilarious. It has nothing to do with anything, but I'm enjoying it. And it's allowing me to kind of enjoy what the two main characters are saying and going through all of that and watching them, but also feel like I'm getting an even more full version of this scene. So it's so good.
And like when I directed Macbeth, in Macbeth has Macduff's whole family killed. And that's the only scene that they're in. It's the only time you see Lady Macduff, you see the kids, and you never see Macduff interact with them. So when I directed Macbeth, I added a huge like ball scene because when they welcome Duncan into the castle, they have like a reception, all of that. We did a little dance to like an acoustic version of Thriller. It was very fun and silly. But the whole Macduff family was there. So you got to see, the three kids and the Lady Macduff and Macduff having a grand old time dancing. Macduff is dancing with the kids. Like you've got this really beautiful, sweet, sincere family moment happening that when they get taken away from him makes it so much more impactful because you've seen them happy together. And it's just like such a little thing where it wasn't there were, 35 people on stage. So the 5 Macduffs they're not taking stage time. They're not pulling stage time. You've got Lady Macbeth and Macbeth having their little fight on the side stage, like in a different room. So it's all happening outside of the actual main action, but having those people in the background telling their own story gives so much enrichment to what happens later on. It just makes it matter more to me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, the making it matter, I think, is I need the audience to care.
Yeah.
And there are many ways that you can do it, but I think by having those levels, you engage that many more people who have that many varying sympathies. You've got somebody who, no matter what, I won't even say a specific animal. If an animal passes away in a film, they're going to be sad about it. But you have some people who aren't pet people. So they're like, all right, whatever. But then if you have, a really intimate connection, or if you happen to play up like how this animal positively influenced the other people around it and brought people together, now if something happens to the animal, then you're that much more invested, even if you weren't at the start of that. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And not to keep talking about Disney, because I know I've become that person now.
Oh no, what will I do? Well, the reason that I went into animation as my career and got a degree in it. So yeah, no.
But yeah, the way that they do pets. Mike and I are obsessed with Coco. I mean, I can't watch that movie without just sobbing.
Oh yeah.
But Dante looks like Hero. Like the way that his tongue hangs out of the side of his mouth, like just doofus of a dog, reminds us so much of Hero. And the way that they just like get that animal personality in, like it's we were in Animal Kingdom on Friday, and they were talking about how Bambi was the first film that they brought live animals into the studio to like study the way that they move. And I know Bambi was like forever ago, but it seems like, and it was like a skunk and a rabbit or whatever, but not like a lion, or I don't know, just the way that they like make these animals so real, even though they're talking rabbits.
Yep. And I have, again, I can appreciate problematic aspects of the behemoth that Disney is.
Absolutely.
But I have a soft spot for them. They've meant a lot to me. Some of the things they've produced have been formative to my art career, have been formative to my human career. So it has been so cool to watch them evolve. And they are often at the cutting edge of this. Now, some of that is because they have the money to do it,
right,
but they also do inspire other people who are not that huge to make things that they then symbiotically learn from. There's a reason that Pixar was kicking their butt for a while, because you took really talented people who got burned out by Disney and went and did their own thing. And then they were like, oh no, we've made a terrible mistake. Please come back and make us good again. So it has its plenty of issues, but watching them move from something like Bambi to what they did with Lion King, to what they do now with characters, and even into the CGI aspect of it, they're keeping that, I will say, CGI in, just because we've been mentioning Up a lot. So the way that Doug looks in Up, the way he emotes and all of that. And even because I watched it relatively recently, the new Doug Days, which are all just little shorts about him and the way he goes through life, which if you've not watched them, please watch them, because they're at Disney Plus and they're so good. Again, but I'm going to go into a whole side tangent, but I'm not going to stop now. So that level of CGI, utilizing the expression and the emotion that you get from watching the animal actually interact in front of you and then exaggerating it to make it a character. Whereas why I think I struggled to enjoy the live action CGI Lion King is because these animals don't actually have that exaggeration. They have incredible exaggeration that they do when they roar or run or all of these things, but it's not a personification of that, and it's not a human thing. So the reason that the Lion King, the original 2D animated one, feels so much is because you can stop any moment of that, and the characters, you can tell what feeling they're feeling because it's on their face, and the way that the animators have taken drawing a character realistically and then exaggerating it to be a personable character lets you know what you're supposed to be feeling in the scene, added to with color palette and all that. Whereas with the newer one, it just looks like a beautiful National Geographic photo shoot, which is awesome. And I can tell these are lions, these are hyenas, all of this. But I can't tell how they're feeling in that scene. So I don't have the emotional connection to it like I did in the original. Being in chat mentions the Jungle Book, which yes, I think they did a better job because they did push more exaggeration, either with the character design or the animation or all of that. I felt like it was better done, but it's a whole thing. So sorry, I have many thoughts on this thing.
No, I want to hear them all. I'm gonna do next scene we do is gonna have animals in it.
Ooh.
I'm put that on the calendar.
Okay,
mark it,
because that's going to challenge me because I am not great at drawing animals. So
no,
I struggle. I think they're hard.
You have so many cats.
I know. I can draw cats, But they're weird liquid creatures who don't obey the laws of physics. So I'm just like, how did you do that? How did you move
Fair.
that way? That's not how real objects work in the world.
I'm trying to think of. I don't think there are any cats in Shakespeare. There's like there are familiars in Macbeth. I'm gonna have to think about it.
I was gonna say, and now I'm trying to think like, what animals are?
There's a dog named Crab in Two Gentlemen of Verona. Yeah, Two Gents, I think. There's a dog. Let's see. We got some birds. We got lots of birds. Lots of birds in Shakespeare. Birds are boring though.
Beautiful to draw. Tough to
tough to tough to emotionally resonate with a bird.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Again, also you look
at.
Oh, yeah, I do love Hey Hey. So we just need to get Alan Tudyk to voice it, and then
yes.
That's
the solution to everything, though.
Also true. You've got like Iago in Aladdin, and I had another one, and it just disappeared. But like they're usually Zazu in Lion King. Like they're comedy characters. They're not, which is fine. But I'm trying to think of other ones. I was like, what's a bird character I really connected to? Even though Bird in Up, whose name I can't remember, is a funny add-on. It's not an emotional add-on. Too many burbs. It's true.
Too many burbs. But yeah, I mean, even Hey Hey is emotional, like or not emotional, a comedic effect.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to do some research. I'm gonna do some research before our January stream and like figure out the most emotional animals in Shakespeare. I did want to talk about time in Shakespeare, though, like the way that Shakespeare plays speed up time in the same way that your like montage effect does.
Okay.
You want to know how he does it?
Yes.
It's got it. Mike just laughed so loud.
I couldn't hear that. That was a genuine yes, Mike. I'm genuinely curious.
He has a character named Time come out on stage and says, "Hey, 16 years have passed." I think that's why Mike laughed so loud.
Now I'm gonna make you extra grumpy.
Yeah. So in The Winter's Tale, which is the play that has the character of Time in it.
I was gonna say that's the one that has the bear, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's an animal in Shakespeare.
I'm learning. I was gonna say I know about that bear more than I know about almost anything else that happens in that play.
Yep. That play is it's an interesting play. Actually the end scene of The Winter's Tale would be really good to do on here. Let me give me a second before I talk about time some more, because I want to write that down, because I do want to do that.
It's okay. I'm gonna do a digital cheat.
Okay.
Just copy and paste it because I think it will add comedic effect.
Boop, 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 boop. Sketching shakes.
Does Mike wear a watch? Does he wear it on his left hand?
He wears a Fitbit on his left hand, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in The Winter's Tale, we get the first part of the play, which is very like gloomy and dark and bad and jealousy and all of that stuff. And then we have Time come out because there's a baby that's born in the first half of the play that comes in the second half of the play, and she's 16 years old now. And it was really cool. When we did it online, we did a streamed version of it this Memorial Day, and our Time character, his mom is a photographer. And so my sister was like in charge of that aesthetic and like really latched onto the idea of cicadas. And it was this brilliant pull that, like, you know, it started with when Perdita is born, when all of the stuff in the first act happens. The act ends with the noise of, we piped the noise of cicadas through. And then to have this passage of time and have them come back 16 years later as is their life cycle. Like that was such a brilliant idea to show that passage of time as itself. And then on top of that, we had him take the monologue and we pre-recorded it rather than him doing it live, which the whole rest of the play was. Besides filming Hero with a little lion head on as the bear running at the camera to be the bear. He started in like this, how did it I think it started in like fall, or we did like winter, spring, summer, or something like that. We did like the movement of that. So every 8 or 12 lines, he like transformed into a new season. So using that like weather pattern to show the passage of time, and then using the cicadas to say that this hasn't just been 1 year, this has been 16, to kind of reinforce that in the text. It was a really cool, really, really cool moment.
That's very cool.
Yeah. But that's basically how Shakespeare did it, was he just told you time had passed.
Which I think is funny because, you know what, that part of it is, I feel like, you know, he made the decision where he's like, this is the least interesting part of the play. Like the rest of the story that's happening, this is what the people want. Give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want. And that happens in a few different plays too. Pericles, I don't think there's a time monologue in that. I think we just have to assume that time has passed. Pericles is a weird play. There's another one that I'm forgetting that has a baby born in the first half, and then we see them at 16 later on.
Okay, so
but like Henry V uses choruses to be like, okay, imagine that this is happening and this war does this and the horses are this, and then they're in France and then they're back in England and now we're coming back to France. So every act in Henry V, because it's such a like self-aware play, that it's like, listen, we know we can't reenact the entire war on stage. So if you hear the sound of horses from backstage, just imagine it's 50 different horses stampeding through this French countryside. It's a really cool kind of play with like your fourth wall breaking imagination. So yeah, he just uses prologues a lot.
I like that though.
Yeah.
Also, I think I meant to troll Mike, but I really just made it look like Anthony.
It does look like it.
It did. Like I was on the beard. I was like, now that Mike's beard is longer, I was like, oh, that's just like grumpy Anthony.
Honestly, I feel like because Mike is such an enthusiastic person,
I can't picture him making this face. I'm struggling to see him like actually look like this, because I'm like, I just know what he looks like when he's smiling. I don't know what he looks like when he's grumpy.
And I guarantee you when he went over there, he was like very calm and smiling like as much as he possibly could at 2 a.m. when we hadn't slept in 3 days.
This is completely exaggerated for dramatic effect. So.
Yeah, it's really funny that Anthony's default, I'm going to tell him his default is grumpus. The true spirit of Christmas.
Yeah, just displeased dad. He just gives me displeased dad vibes. It's really.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Like, yes. Oh, do
you see what time it is?
Yeah, so this is one of those where I feel like, again, it's funnier because there isn't dialogue. Like, this is because it's a very specific gesture. Like, you know what he's saying, even though it's not being said. So even if this wasn't me utilizing the actual Shakespeare text, like, I probably would still push to have this panel not have text on it because it's funnier. Like, that's a funny delivery of it. I think it's funnier. Let me say that. I'm enjoying it, so.
Yeah. I love it. I love how grumpy he is. I love that it says so much without, like you said, without saying anything. And there's so much that happens in, like I was saying at the beginning, the scene is just a vibe. And all of the puns are really, really funny, but you don't really need, because I'm seeing like a whole journey of this scene without any words at all. And even like I know what happens in the scene, but I don't think that you need to in order to understand it.
Just the hope. That's always the hope.
Yeah. And like you said, you don't think that it necessarily needs the Polaroid passage of time, but I think that just reinforces how long the party has gone. Like it reinforces the fact that it has been several hours of partying rather than just like, oh, they started partying and then someone came and knocked on the door and said, you know what time it is. Like that doesn't give us the full picture of how long it's been.
Right. And even just the idea, that this might be a multi-day party. Like this might be
Yeah.
an ongoing thing where you're just like, seriously, you guys, we've been at this for so many hours, like so many days.
In the top, the one with the shot of the frat house, I think it's because of the orange. But do you see this as daytime or nighttime?
I think in my brain I saw it as nighttime, but I kind of like the idea of, again, something else you can play with. Not that I ever color these because colors are hard. But something else you could do that would be really, really fun and would help the nonverbal communication of it is you could start this opening scene in the daylight and somehow have like windows behind them or something else that shows, when you get to her, to show that it is now dark outside. So that would also show that we started it and this is what it looked like. And now when we're actually having this conflict, it has dropped to, you could see the moon out. That would be another thing. If I wanted to start the moon like as a sunset and then have it be actually, that might actually even be more dramatic just because the sunset's so bright.
And then you could see like dark. Like the sunrise almost in like the very last Grumpy Mike panel.
Grumpy Mike panel. Just makes me laugh. Which is one of those where I'm just like, nope, I feel like, if as long as I'm cracking myself up, it's probably fine.
Honestly, yeah, that feels fair. You don't even need to see a time on the watch. Like you don't even need to see it. It doesn't need to have any specific time. It just needs to like be that watch pointing moment of like,
It's a universal frustration moment.
I really love this.
Fun. And I will say I have not made it as far as I usually do because it was challenging, but I kind of love it as a scene, as a page.
I super love it because it's just like a feeling. Like everyone's been here. I feel like everyone has either been annoyed at a party that has gone too long or been at a party that has gone too long. I think it's so cool. I want to know a little bit more about what's happening in this second, or I guess the third panel, because I know we've got Jungle Juice and Beer Pong.
Yes.
But this feels the most chaotic to me.
That's fair. I think it's because I added in what I wanted is I want to play with silhouetted characters being the background to the two main characters. So I want you to see, I know I had started to ink it before, but I didn't like my ink, so I glued them because that's how this works. What are the other UT colors? What did you say they were? They're orange and...
It's just orange.
Oh, it's just orange.
And,
okay.
Orange and tan. Orange.
And tan. Orange and dark
orange. White.
Right, so we'll just go.
Yeah, Mike, you missed at the beginning when she pulled up a frat house and just like randomly chose this orange color. And I was like, oh, it's at UT.
So let's do this. All right, so let's bring this down. So what I really want, nope, don't draw on the wrong layer. That's not the way to do it. Is I want to have these two guys being the actual detailed characters that have not only you can see like what they're wearing and what their faces are doing, but then to have everybody else be like a silhouette of, so imagine this was a person. Let's do that'll be. This is also where it's funny because I actually think, well, I can cover a lot digitally. This is also the time where it's really fun to just block in these big shapes with markers. So then I've got, we'll say like, what would be two people talking back here, but we don't need them to, this sounds so weird. We don't need them to have details. We don't need to have them have personality, because what I want is I want you to understand that there's all this chaos going around going on around them, but they are oblivious to it. So the focus that they have is on each other. That's like that.
Interesting.
So he's looking at him, and this is where, they're.
It also kind of reinforces that like drunkenness that everything starts to blur around you.
Yep. So I like that. Just here's them picking on each other about time and doing that, so that they are the centers of their own world. And also too, you as the viewer are getting to know that these are the ones that we need to pay attention to. These are the characters that are going to have, more lines coming up. Man.
Yeah, that's super cool. It also, like Sonata Mag says, like there's a depth to it. It makes the party feel very, very busy and very full.
Yeah, which that I think is fun. But also in an effort to condense time, obviously not drawing characters full out is quicker because I can just draw them as, shadow shapes. But another one of those things where I don't want to pull the focus from these two. Like the actual battling back and forth with their words is the entertaining part of the scene. So that I want you focusing on. I don't necessarily want you paying attention to the other characters and having you pull away from that.
Sure. And I think something else that's really cool about this that's super subtle is that you've got this character on the left in the foreground of it that's got their hand on their hip, which is kind of like an early indication that not everyone is having the time that Andrew and Toby are. Like that you've got, even inside the party, people who are around them are also, not all like in on it.
Which feels like so much like not that I ever went to a frat party because we didn't have frats at my school, but it was that, attending the few parties that I did, there were times where I was just like, there are a couple people who are having the best night. Yeah. And everybody else is kind of having other variations of good nights or okay nights, but there's a lot of us not having fun.
Yeah. So, that's really cool. And it's super, super subtle. But it lays the seeds early of some discomfort.
Yeah.
So it's really cool, Swan.
Yeah. But I just like, again, I like any way that I can. Let me see if I can put this up here. So the big thing is I want your eye being drawn like to this section here and them. So framing them with those other characters is kind of an important part of that. But also, like Sanaa said, it's pushing the depth. It's pushing the fact that I want you to think that the party goes, back into the house, back behind there. And we're kind of, I imagine, we're doing like a fly in where we're steady camming in through this door. So this is us coming through the door. So you're then getting a kind of rough picture of, all right, here's the beer pong table, here's them drinking the jungle juice. And then we're starting to get, slowly narrowing our scope until we get to the people that we really want to interact with. So
I think this is really fun. It's so different. It's so different than the ones we've done before because it isn't about it's not about the language at all. It's not really about the words that are in the text. It's more about like the feeling that these characters are going through, the emotional journey, or like the active journey rather than textual.
Yeah. Because I feel like there has been a lot of, in some of the ones we've done, very specific lines that convey the feelings, the emotions of the characters, and that really drives how that scene feels.
Yeah.
And this I don't feel is quite the same.
No, but like I think this works so well for the medium that we're putting it into. Like text can work on stage, but it doesn't necessarily, like when you're putting it into a comic, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Also the fact that you can copy and paste like this so that all of the Polaroids are the same shape and size is bananas.
It's so nice. It's the best because I can't keep shapes like that consistent. I was like, what? You want me to draw plate armor and all the plates need to be the same size and shape? That's just bonkers. Why would you do that?
Why would you do
Why
that?
would you do that?
That's so cool.
But there's some artists who do like they'll do it traditionally too, and they'll make it look easy. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that doesn't make actual sense to me.
No,
How you
that
did
doesn't
that.
make sense to me either. But also, none of this does. So this has been really cool.
That's been cool. I'm excited. Like this one's gonna, like I said, we're obviously not as far along as we normally are, but it's also one of the busier
Yeah,
scenes I think we've done.
it feels fuller.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
I kind of like some of the ones that we have set up, like the one that ended up being 2 pages from Much Ado.
Yeah.
Even though it is a very tense scene, there is a conclusion to that interaction. You start with Benedict entering and talking to Beatrice, and it ends with her leaving. Like there's a conclusion to this. Whereas this one I kind of like, or the one now, of course I can't remember which actual speech. I think it was from Hamlet. Maybe that's wrong. The one we ended up doing as a football coach doing the speech. It was about
yeah, Henry Richard II.
Yes. Like it kind of had a conclusion because he was giving a speech. Whereas this one I like because it very much ends on this guy is upset, but you don't actually know what happens next. Like, how mad is he? Where is this going to go? Is the next page where you turn it open like everybody getting arrested, or I kind of like that. That's a fun thing to play with. So.
Yeah, that open-ended, like it doesn't have and like we know that the conclusion, or like that the way that it resolves itself happens throughout the next 3 acts. But even so, like Malvolio just kind of gets mad and walks away from it. Like that's there is no real solid conclusion ending for his story. So this open-endedness is very, very cool.
Yeah. No, this is fun. I'm excited to keep working into this one. But when I finally post all of these, is what I'm going to try and do is I try to save it at the end of our episode where we finish, and then have that to be able to do a side-by-side of what it turns into once I actually sit and work on it more.
Yeah.
So.
I love it. I love this. I love you. This was a fun Christmassy, even though it's a little grumpy.
It's all of the emotions. I feel like that's the most appropriate Christmas thing. Like there's drinking, there's happiness, there's anger, there's sadness, there's fatigue. It's all the 12 emotions of Christmas.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for joining us. If you love Shakespeare, check out P2M Pod, Protest Too Much podcast. Our most recent episode goes over, speaking of Christmas, 3 Shakespeare Christmas adaptations, like Hallmark movies.
Fun. I wrote down the one name of them because I was like, I need to watch this now. I need it.
It is The Spruces and the Pines, Rodeo and Juliet, and then Much Ado About Christmas, which I loved. Yeah, so if you like Shakespeare stuff, go ahead and check out P2M Pod. And if you like art stuff,
come here for more art stuff. Doodle Crew will be back in the new year. And we will be planning more episodes. We have 9 more episodes, 9 or 8 more episodes this season. So we've got a bunch more, and then we got to figure out what we're going to do for our interlude. So if you have ideas, I know, our mid-season break, let us know. Yeah, but more art. And if you want to see more of Steph and I talking to each other and a not angry Mike, join us every other Wednesday at twitch.tv/NADDpod, where we talk
this
to
Wednesday.
each other.
This is one of the every other Wednesdays.
Yeah.
We are going to be setting New Year's resolutions for each other. We are going to be chatting about all sorts of things. It is going to be awesome. It's going to be so much fun. So check it out Wednesday night at 8/7 Central. Yay! That's it. Goodbye. We're so good at ending.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you.